Welcome back to a bit of David Watson Extra, and I thought I'd chip in and give my view, my feelings on the Gary Lineker debacle and the BBC, the great and mighty British Biased Corporation, or the Biased Broadcasting Corporation, or the British Broadcasting Corporation, whichever you think the BBC means. So, first off, I'm going to say something about the BBC, and that this has been a problem for a long time, where they have a policy of what journalists or presenters can and cannot say about politics, because they're supposed to just stay quiet. But they've never really enforced that, or there's been grey areas around how it's enforced. Typically with Gary Lineker, it's because of the fact he's a sports presenter, he's not in news or current affairs. And he's self-employed. He's employed by a production company, which I believe he owns. So it's whether or not he really falls foul of the BBC's rules and policies. That's what's currently being debated. Secondly, it's been going on for a long time. And now suddenly they're jumping in, digging in, giving a bit and saying it's not acceptable. So why is that? Well, there could be a few reasons. A while back, let me just double check the date if I've still got it. It's in the JC, which is a Jewish magazine, and they reported on December the 29th, 2022, that the BBC were facing a complaint after Gary Lineker lamented the killing of a Palestinian footballer who was later revealed to be a Hamas terrorist. So the BBC presenter and former England striker sparked fury after he described footballer Ahmed Darahagmeh's death as awful. My apologies for that pronunciation. However, it was later revealed that Darahagmeh had been shot dead after firing at Israeli soldiers. So it turns out, or it's alleged, revealed, that he was a Hamas terrorist. Now, if you're going to publicly come out and support a Hamas terrorist, or remember the Hamas, obviously the Palestinians don't believe them to be terrorists, and I do not know anywhere near enough about that to get involved, you're going to face a backlash from the Israelis, the Jews. And this is exactly what happened. And there was some lawyers from representing, I think, Israel UK, sent a letter to the BBC pointing this out to them. Gary Lineker also, in referencing 1930s Germany, didn't seem to understand that the Home Secretary is going to find that offensive. Suella is going to find that offensive because her husband is Jewish. And you're referencing the situation with Germany and its policies towards the Jews, or the Nazis towards the Jews. Sorry about that, I got interrupted. So there's a little bit more to it than just what he said and the government being upset and people calling out the BBC. Now, I, for one, don't believe that Gary Lineker is anti-Semitic, has an issue with the Jews. It just doesn't strike me as who he is, to be honest. I do think he's a little bit out of touch of why people in the UK are pissed off with illegal immigration and economic migration. Because he's a multi-millionaire who's not affected by these things, by and large. So I do think he misunderstands what people are angry and upset about. However, he is also right in the fact that we have to be very careful about refusing genuine refugees. But of course, the argument is we're not allowed to test to decide if they're refugees or not, are we? So that's a problem. Another thing that's going on in the background that I don't think people are aware of is the tax issue with Gary Lineker's tax. So it's there is currently or about to be a court case with HMRC, and this is to collect I think it's just short of £4 million in taxes. Now, everyone calls Gary Lineker a tax dodger because of this, but from everything I can find out, what I've read, he's not dodging the tax. He's not disputing the tax is owed. What he's disputing is who should be paying for it. And he is arguing that it should be the BBC. So not only does he have, and I think that's actually what the court case is the HMRC is saying this is why you owe it, and he's going to give evidence, or his team are going to give evidence of why the BBC owe it. So this is costing Gary Lineker a fortune in lawyers. And it's no doubt going to cost the BBC a fortune in lawyers, plus potentially £4 million. Some of the stuff I read from accountants and things, where they think he actually has a pretty good case. So it's not just this one tweet. And there's a lot going on in the background with Gary Lineker and the BBC. And maybe this is just the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe both of them were looking for a way for him to get out. What I will say is, it's not unusual for somebody to work for a company and that company has a social media policy that says you can't do X, Y, or Z because it might potentially reflect on us. And if you do, you're fired. So this isn't exclusive to Gary Lineker, and it's not exclusive to all these flipping presenters who are standing in solidarity. That just kind of goes to show how much you don't know what goes on in the real world. However, the BBC haven't been consistent in their policy. And then there's that argument of whether or not that policy applies to Gary Lineker because he doesn't work in current affairs. And it's a private Twitter account. Personally, I think if you work for the British Broadcasting Corporation, the great and wonderful, soon to be defunded BBC, you are paid by the taxpayer. It is paid by a licence fee. It is supposed to be a state broadcasting corporation. Therefore, your political opinions shouldn't be known. They just shouldn't. And for me, that's where I stand on it. And not just with Gary Lineker, with anybody. If you take money in whatever capacity from the BBC, I shouldn't know your policies as far as I'm concerned, your political leanings, what you support. I shouldn't know if you're an environmentalist, a leader of the in favour of the Tory party, the Labour Party, the Green. I don't care. You take taxpayers' money. You're supposed to be working in an unbiased manner, and therefore, as far as I'm concerned, you don't get to have a private public Twitter feed, a private public Instagram, and your political views should not be on there. That's my own personal opinion, and that's exactly what I do with the BBC moving forward. I hope the BBC stand their ground. I hope that Gary Lineker, I wish him well. He's not going to be short of work. I hope, like Simon Jordan says, that Gary Lineker dies on his sword and says, actually, no, this is a genuine issue for me. I'm genuinely offended by this. Therefore, I'm going to hand my notice in and quit and refuse to come back. Because that will actually have some real meaning. And then he can go off and sign a bigger deal with a commercial organisation and do or continue to do and say whatever the hell he wants. It's entirely up to him. But there's more to it than just one tweet. If you've watched this, please like, subscribe. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like my opinion on. And as always, please comment below. Thank you very much for watching.